welcome everyone that's on board at the moment to the Heal Earth Roots and Resonance Learning Differently to Heal Our Earth. We'll be looking at inclusive earth-based educational approach for diverse minds. In terms of the webinar pathway, we'd be looking at why this subject matter is important now and for the future. We'll be looking at understanding neurodivergence, regenerative education, roots, looking at nature-based learning, and traditional ecological stories and book project invitation that we'll be extending to the webinar participants. We'll be focusing on resonance as a new model for education. We also will have a participatory activity, which will be focusing on sensory mapping, and we'll be looking at building ecosystems of support, and thereafter we'll take questions and then begin with our conversations. So looking at roots and resonance and the focus of today's webinar, why does it matter now? Currently, it's becoming glaringly obvious that climate change is not something that we can ignore. We see it affecting daily lives locally, regionally, globally. There's a time of interconnected crises, whether that's looking at the climate breakdown and the extreme weather patterns that occur, whether that's looking at mental health emergencies that are on the rise, unfortunately. Whether we interlink it to the increase in diagnosis of the various neurodivergent conditions, as well as the social exclusion of neurodivergent individuals, and interlinks to disconnection from land, ancestry, and indigenous and heritage ways and pathways of looking after planet Earth, looking after our community. So at the moment, these are just small snapshots of the interconnected crises that are kind of feeding into a global and local chaos in sense. And there are a lot of conversations that are occurring about the exclusion of neurodivergent learners. The fact that we have a lot of education systems. However, a common pattern is emerging where conformity is rewarded over creativity, testing is prioritized over curiosity, ecological literacy is sometimes ignored, and there are often gaps of support for neurodivergent learners, some of whom may not have a formal diagnosis at childhood, who may later on, when they become adults, might be late diagnosed. But because of a lack of diagnosis, there might be a lack of support at school. So at Heal Earth, we believe that learning can be rooted in the earth and resonate far beyond the classroom, looking at an interconnected and holistic model to really support all learners, to really be neuro-inclusive and build and nurture the next generation of sustainability and climate leaders. Neurodivergence comes in many forms. Neurodivergent individuals process the world differently. Examples of neurodivergence include autism, ADHD, dyslexia and dyspraxia, sensory processing differences, amongst many other neurodivergent cognitive differences. Now, we believe these are not deficits, but they're different cognitive styles, and there is still ongoing work that is further developing, whether that's in science, whether that's a socio-community model, whether that's a socio-educative model in sort of learning further about the prevalence of neurodivergency and the various sensory processing. And we believe it goes beyond the cognitive differences. We believe that there is a physical element as well that will further be more apparent as we get in more understanding, and as we begin to recognize that lived experience is also a form of expertise. So neurodivergent learners may see patterns that others may miss, but because they might have a different way of communicating, their pattern recognition skills are sometimes not recognized in formal settings. They may feel deeply, or they may feel in a different manner. They may think holistically, and they may focus on looking at a topic and how it interconnects. So, for instance, when we're teaching, we may need to explain to the neurodivergent learner how a particular topic or unit strand fits into the bigger picture, so they can make those interlinks. Neurodivergent learners may innovate in non-linear ways, which with support can further creativity, with support can further, even if we look at the theory of Bloom's taxonomy, the higher order thinking skills when it comes to synthesis, for instance. We like to focus on the strength of neurodivergent minds, as well as recognizing the support that they require. So the deep empathy for living beings, the systematic thinking, which may be ideal for permaculture and sustainability, the sensory sensitivity that creates profound connection to the environment. So nature-based learning activities or earth-focused learning activities may resonate with neurodivergent learners. The ability to cultivate and enhance the creativity and the non-linear thinking, the problem solving, what is sometimes termed as a cliched out-of-the-box thinking, and emotional insight. These are strengths and capacities that our world needs to heal. At Heal Earth, we believe that sustainability and climate education are habits that we begin to cultivate at an early age, and it goes through the academic learning journey. Gabriella, would you like to please focus on the regenerative education?
Of course. With regenerative education, we are dealing with a learning approach that restores and strengthens the interconnected well-being of people, communities, and ecosystems as well. It's not just about content, it's a way of being with the world. It connects learners to the land. It makes space for all sensory styles and emotional tempos. And it's also cyclical in nature. It listens to ecosystems and to learners as well. The aim is not to just produce students who pass tests, but to grow human beings who can meet the challenges of this century and meet it with resilience and clarity. So it's not just a curriculum add-on, it's a paradigm shift almost. Now, with nature-based learning, it's learning that is grounded in direct interaction with the natural environment, where knowledge is gained through observation, experience, and relationships with the land. We believe that nature is not just a backdrop to learning. Nature is, in a sense, the classroom itself. Whether it's a garden, park, or just a patch of wild ground, for instance, Heal Earth brings learners into contact with the rhythms and intelligence of the earth. And when children learn from the land, they also learn to love and protect it. And that's important. So in this course, nature isn't the backdrop, it's also the teacher. Now, across every continent, indigenous and ancestral cultures have used stories, not lectures, not slides or textbooks, but stories to pass on ecological knowledge. These stories are not just myths, they are stories that are encoded in systems of science, ethics, um, to place-based wisdom, and deep relational understanding. In this course, we try to integrate ecological stories from global traditions to teach sustainability through metaphor, imagination, morality, and this allows learners, especially neurodivergent learners, to access complex systems through narrative logic. And we're extending that storytelling tradition forward to include youth participants in different groups who will be invited to co-create a living storybook that blends climate learning with art, poetry, and ancestral insight.
Thank you, Gabriella. In terms of focusing on resonance as a new model for education, we believe that interconnectedness of the roots and resonance, so a healing educational model where learners are grounded in ecology and community. So the community includes the local, regional community, but also, as Gabriella mentioned, the indigenous roots as well, and the heritage care of planet Earth. We're looking at value for unique cognitive and emotional styles, and really incorporating that and looking at the learner holistically. It wouldn't be considered as a curriculum add-on. It would be a zeitgeist, a paradigm shift in how we're supporting our learners and taking their strengths forward and letting them lead themselves. So we have this holistic healing model of learning that also benefits planet Earth and the people. In terms of our educational philosophy at Heal Earth, we believe that learning should be earth-rooted, so really grounded in ecological systems, working with the seasons, working with the cycles, working with how the learner is comfortable, whether that's social, emotionally, whether that's physically, what's working for them. Even when you're looking at light levels, for instance, in a classroom, or the sensory inputs that are coming in, how is a child able to lead themselves in that learning, and how comfortable they are even in the learning environment, as well as in the learning curricula. Neuro-inclusivity is really important. It's not something that we can go on to ignore, especially in the 21st century. So this designed for diverse brains and bodies and cognitive systems, socially just, incredibly important. So centering those marginalized voices and lived experience being really important. Healing is an underpinning philosophy at Heal Earth, offering safety, fostering resilience, and the ability to self-lead is really, really important. Co-creation is something that's really embedded in what we do in the learners and the facilitators to share power in the education system and co-design learning pathways. And we believe that has a knock-on effect in the future in sort of having this momentum of raising future sustainability advocates and leaders. Our programs and offerings focus on the Eco Leadership Institute. We're accredited as a CPD provider. We have a learning hub that families, youth groups, homeschoolers, or as an add-on to lessons, anybody can partake in. We focus on sustainable story workshops as well, and we offer books and puzzles and ebooks. And with our sustainability storytelling titles, we have the physical book, but we also offer jigsaw puzzles with that. So if the learner would like to read the book, a few pages of the book, and then they'd like to sort of have a kind of static element where they focus on solving the puzzle, which is which has an illustration that's related to the book, and then they can discuss the concepts in the book with the TA, for instance, or with the learning support provider. And that allows them that space to breathe and to use their hands and use their minds to sort of discuss the concepts, and then come back to reading when they're ready. We're working on a Heal Earth Adventures app that we would like to co-create with the community. So this is something that we would like the global and the local community to work with us on. We also have neuro-inclusive sustainability and climate education modules, and offer custom solutions as well, working with organizations. And if there is interest in that, we'll share the link at the end, or you can go to our website, www.healearth.co, or send us an email at info@healearth.co to move forward with that. Now, we'd like to do a quick participatory activity in terms of a sensory mapping. So if you would like to take a moment to reflect, just close your eyes for a minute. And think of a place in nature where you felt calm and safe. What did you hear? What textures did you feel? What colors and shapes did you see? And how did your body respond in that space? I would like you to kind of really take a moment to reflect on that. We'd like you to hold those thoughts, because we're going to come back and ask you in our conversation at the end. Gabriella, over to you, please.
Right. So the Planet Pulse Lab is a way of turning education into measurable transformation. It's a living system, a data story told by young people, educators, and communities, tracking what they are doing to heal the earth. Every tree planted, every bit of plastic refused, every walk instead of a drive, it all matters. And participants will be able to submit their actions through the local impact dashboard, a tool that not only tracks effort but visualizes momentum and results. This climate action made personal and powerful, and every submission feeds into a collective pulse, a visual tapestry of small efforts which converge ultimately into a global significance.
Thank you. We're looking to build ecosystems of support. So we're actively seeking partnerships and with organizations, individuals, community members who believe in this vision. Join us if you're a school, an educational organization, a homeschooling family, a youth worker, NGO seeking inclusive programming, an educator, a therapist wanting to embed regenerative and neuro-inclusive practices, a funder or an ally wanting to support a transformative educational model. We'd love to co-create with you. So now I think we'll take a moment to sort of pause and open up for discussion. If the participant would like to discuss what resonated with them and what they think the future pathway could be in developing a roots and resonance model of learning, and how you might bring this into your own context. So we'd like to thank you for joining the webinar and recognizing that learning is rooted in the earth and resonates with the full humanity. It's not a luxury, but it's actually a necessity. We envision a future where all learners feel safe, seen and supported, and neurodivergent brilliance is recognized and nurtured. and that education becomes a pathway for planetary healing